Every great achievement is first a dream before it becomes a reality. That is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite persons in the world, the late Lee Kuan Yew, the author of this wonderful book, From Thought to First Word. I first read this book 10 years ago, that was 2015, and I recently picked it up to go through. Now, the lessons I learned from this book over the years are lessons that have held me over time, kept me over time on my way to fulfilling purpose. Now, this is an ordinary man in a third world country, that decided, the first thing is that he made up his mind that his country, Singapore, one of the poorest country then, they were together with Malaysia when they gained independence, and later he stood up with a team of young people in Singapore and decided they wanted total independence. More than half of the country at that particular time were all illiterate, no jobs, nothing. This man stood his ground. The first thing he did, number one, was he instilled discipline in the people of Singapore. Discipline to the extent that at a point when the economy was bad, they were able to manage resources down to electricity. They had the discipline not to ever trash things on the road. The second thing he did, that he was deliberate with educating his people. In fact, there's even a page in this book where he said, every young man must marry, every young educated man must marry an educated woman. Can you imagine that? Everybody was running to the classroom. Everybody was looking for what to learn. There were institutions that were built to make sure young people were educated in Singapore. Now, the same Singapore that was a third world country, that had more than half of its population illiterates, that had, let me now bust the brain. Singapore has no single natural resource. Not one. Everything in Singapore is man-made. Now, more than 30 years, this dream came true in 30 years. It's not something they started today and they changed government and they went to the beginning. No. In 30 years, Singapore had the best airlines, the best airports, and it became one of the most important tourist centers that you want to go to. And right now, Singapore is the richest country in the world. Their gross GDP is more than any other country. Now, you might be thinking, that is a country that was built, but the same principles can be applied into your own life. I applied it and it's been 11 years. This was the book, one of the books I read when I started in living a purpose-driven life. Singapore decided to live a purpose-driven life, and it took one man, this man, Lee Kuan Yew, to stand up and say, this is what we want done. See, until you stand up and take responsibility for your life, you are going to remain the same way. That is one. Two, until you decide to get yourself to be disciplined enough to remain on that path, comes push or shove. There were pages on this book where countries threatened them. Countries threatened to shut them down, and they stood their ground. You have to decide to take responsibility for your life. Another thing is that you need to learn to build integrity. One thing Singapore built is integrity. In this book, one of the chapters, it talked about when, I think, Guinness wanted to build a factory in Singapore and Malaysia was against it because kind of envy. They were kind of growing faster. And without Malaysia, Singapore cannot trade. You have to come through Malaysia to Singapore to trade. And they blocked it. Meanwhile, Guinness had already made an upfront payment to Singapore. So out of pity, the owner of, the directors of Guinness said, okay, no problem. We'll forfeit the stuff, the money. No, you don't have to return it. This man stood his ground. Although he never had the money to return immediately, he gave them the time and he refunded that money, even in their poverty. That is integrity. Build integrity in your life. Stop going through the back door always. The same way Singapore has become one of the top most sought after countries, you can be the most sought after human being on earth. You need to learn to decide. Stand your ground. Take responsibility for your life. Be disciplined with your plans. Don't be everywhere. Pick the areas of your life you want to focus on and be deliberate. Be intentional with the things you do with your life. This book has helped me and I'm recommending it to everyone. See, every nation, every human being should have a copy of this book because it is mind-blowing. He is late now, but his legacy remains.